party people. Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I'm your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week on the show, I'm joined once again by Tracy Barnett for the second half of our Edda accelerated adventure. Last episode, we made our characters and revisited the world of Jotunheim, and now our unlikely heroes are staring down a Petruvian invasion force, and we're ready to get into the gameplay itself. I am very, very excited. This is such a cool concept. I'm just hype, and I can't wait for you to hear it. It's a great episode. I'm very, very excited. You can find links to Edda Accelerated as well as all of Tracy's other work in the show notes below. A few quick things before we dive in. First, a thank you to Fragmentation, our newest backer on Patreon. Simply put, your support makes the show happen, makes the games that I produce happen. All of the cool stuff I do is because Patreon backers are supporting it. So thank you, I appreciate it. It means a lot. For more information about the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/JeffStormer. Support podcasts I make, the games I design, all of that cool stuff. Get some cool rewards. It's a great thing. Check it out. Also, a reminder that this Saturday, July 20th at 5:30 p.m., Tattooed Moms in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we'll be doing a Party of One live show as part of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. We are going to be playing Heel Turn 3 by Brian Baker, a professional wrestling game of tag team turmoil. We're going to be joined by J.R. Goldberg, friend of the show, professional wrestling, journalist, game designer, wonderful, wonderful human being. I'm very excited. This is going to be a dream show for me. It is my favorite venue, one of my favorite guests. It's a great game. I am over the moon, and I hope you'll make it out. You can find a link to the Facebook group to RSVP, also in the show notes below. And with all that said, let's throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future May. This week, I am sitting down once again with Tracy Barnett. Tracy, thank you so much for coming back on Party of One.
Jeff, I am really happy to be here.
I am super, super excited to have you here to be playing this game. I know that the listeners are excited after we kind of built it up in the last episode with our character creation. I think this is going to be so much fun. Real quick, though, why don't you take a moment and tell us what we're playing this week, as well as talk about anything else you've got going on that you might want the listeners to know about.
Sure. We are playing our second session of Edda Accelerated. This is sort of a continuation of the previous story, but not really. We are using the same holdfast and questions that were generated in the previous session, but the previous session we wrapped up a whole storyline. In fact, we went far into the future of what will be for this particular place. So what we're going to do with these two characters is we are going to explore some of the questions that we didn't really get to in the previous session and see how life is in the Holdfast of Jotunheim after after Leif Bjarnbjørn became the Jarl.
Yes, struck down the Jarl of Jarls with a sort of a cunning knowledge of the region and sort of the Holdfast itself. Sort of proved themselves to be the true Jarl, and with the help of their good friend Sigrun, who was the crafter who, striking a deal with a giant, one of the many giants that lives peacefully around the Holdfast of Jotunheim, how we've earned our name, struck down the Jarl with a mighty scythe crafted by Sigrun. However, made at the cost that Sigrun would eventually become the giant living at the bottom of this mountain.
And also with the help of Ingrid Svelfast, who we don't really know what her deal was. She was just sort of there. We don't even know why the previous Jarl wanted her fealty. So that's interesting. We may touch on that, we may not. And then to answer the second part of your question, I am currently doing a lot of freelance work. I've got stuff for a few different clients, but my primary work for myself right now is my game Valkyries, which is about women and non-binary sort of freedom fighters that wake up in a galaxy about 500 years after the war that they were sort of trained for. And they're basically the most powerful thing around. And it becomes the Superman question of, when you can commit violence at the drop of a hat, what do you do with yourself, with your life? The first draft of that is due to Galileo Games at the end of June. I will have it at Origins for playtesting. And I'm excited to really hammer this one out because it's been in the works for a few years now, sort of on various back burners. I have a small games anthology that I'm working on putting together that should be kickstarting in mid-July, the name of which will be Paper Arcade. And then my Patreon, my podcast, the other cast, general stuff that would be too long to get into, but a lot of good is going on right now.
I can't tell you how excited I am for Valkyries based on that pitch alone, because I don't know if you know this about me, but that Superman stuff, it's my jam. That question is real close to my heart. So I'm in. You've hooked me.
Wonderful. I really like that every time I've talked to you so far about things that I'm pitching, you've said that.
Good.
That makes me very happy. It means I'm doing. It means
you're pitching good things, and that's what's important.
Oh, also, I believe I said this in the previous episode, but it bears repeating. I am doing a podcast called Another Blank Page with Kate Bowie, where we are building a world together, sort of one blank wiki page at a time. And I wanted to mention it specifically because it was partially inspired by All My Fantasy Children.
Oh, and that makes me extremely happy. Like it is the most it really hits me in the heart, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we're doing it. I'm really happy that we were able to get that inspiration, and I'm also really happy that we got Aaron to do the intro music.
It's the best. It owns. So let's go ahead and introduce our characters, and let's dive into this epic tale of heroism, or something like that.
Something like that. Do you want to introduce your character first?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week I am playing Ivar Bone Axe. Ivar is a shield bearer. Ivar is, or was, at one point in my life, I was a slayer of great beasts. A little bit of a trophy hunter, a little bit of a, warrior for hire, a little bit of a, let's just call it what it is, a little bit of a show off. I was going off and doing not going after the easy targets, but going after the ones that would get me in the history books. At the start of our story, and we'll kind of get into why that is, I'm not as much of that. You would recognize me in an instant from my signature dragon scale shirt, the first mighty beast that I felled. But at the start of our story, I am on a cart full of, I don't know, what do we think is on this cart that our characters are riding on?
Well, the whole area is suffering from massive flooding, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that it's like sandbags, right? It's bags of ballast that have been used to try and stem the flooding in one area that's down below Jotunheim. And the cart is just passing through Jotunheim because going up the hill is easier than trying to make your way through the morass down around the hill. So it's just, we just happen to be heading up the hill to Jotunheim as this cart is heading to somewhere else, ostensibly to help stem the tide to someplace else. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm sitting on this cart of sandbags, bandaged to hell, blood still periodically trickling through the wrapped bandages around my chest and arms and legs. And I'm just slouched down, my dragon scale shirt probably has at least a few chunks taken out of it. And I am just sitting quietly, the bone axe that is my namesake at my feet, and I just am not looking anyone or anything in the eye.
So I'm in the cart as well. In fact, I think we're the only two people in the cart aside from, the person who's driving it. And Boke Pelbairn is a relatively nondescript masculine looking person, but it's that kind of nondescriptness that is almost intentional, right? Like when you look at someone and like they're trying to just be forgettable, and that has its own sort of memorability attached to it. But you can tell that Boke is geared for a time on the road alone, right? Like their pack is very tightly packed. It looks like there might be a lot of stuff in there, and everything has to go back in a very specific order to get it balanced right. Their boots are well worn but well taken care of. Like they're very self-sufficient, self-reliant. The only thing that really stands out about Boke is that every so often as they shift with the rocking of this cart, the front of their shirt sort of gaps open, and right at the top of their chest there is it looks like a necklace at a glance. If you look more closely, you can see that the wood is actually inset into their skin, into their flesh, and it's the rune of Awaz, which means horse and swiftness. So it is obvious to anyone who cares to look that Boke is a rune scribed. So you've been sitting there silently. Have Ivar and Boke spoken much at all, or did they just sort of happen upon this card at the same time?
I almost think at least I think Ivar has not, if they've spoken, it has not been, Ivar has not started the conversation. And if they haven't spoken, I think Ivar has enjoyed the silence. And I think if,
Okay.
so what do you think? Has Boke spoken to Ivar?
I think the Boke is about to. I think that it's not one of those pressure of speech things. It's because they've been sitting in silence for quite a while. I like taking my time when I'm looking someone over and sort of sizing them up to try and figure how they factor into my current situation. And I think enough time has passed and we're still far enough away from Jotunheim that it's time to find out more. I've gleaned every bit of information that I can get, just visually. So I speak up and I say, "You look like you've been through hell and back."
Hell yes, back not sure yet.
It's armor, that axe. I feel like I've heard stories about you.
There's a time I would have leaned into that very hard. But
and that time is different now?
Yeah, I believe so.
Did it change long ago or after you took those wounds you got there?
The latter. I really thought I could handle myself, and I don't know. I'm questioning a lot of things now.
So what handed you your ass? Or, I mean, your arm. I'm not sure if your ass is hurt or not.
Yeah, it's not feeling great. But thank you for asking. Thing isn't quite accurate. Things, plural, and god damn, there were a lot of them. Do you see that? And I point to the horizon where there are just the slightest wisps of a smoke trail that are just slowly getting larger by the day and by the hour.
And I assume this is sort of down and away from Jotunheim. Kind of hard to miss.
It seems we're at war. Nobody felt to tell us or tell my hunting party, my crew.
So you took on what, a Petruvian legion?
I mean, if that's one legion, then I don't think we're going to do well.
Wow. That, I mean, that running away is always an option, right?
For anyone else at another time in my life, I mean, now Yeah, I can comfortably say that running away is an option, but I needed to. You said it yourself. There are stories about Ivar Bonax, the Slayer, the champion, the Titan. Guess I needed to prove those stories false.
That seems a hell of a way to do it. I mean, you could just stop or leave, go someplace else. Stories don't travel everywhere.
That might be what I'm doing now. I haven't fully decided yet, other than licking my wounds or salting them, because God damn, that smarts.
Yeah, the with all the mines in the area, the sand has a pretty high salt content. You wanna make sure you don't get that in that like that big cut right there across your chest.
Yeah.
Avoid that.
Yeah, that's gonna probably make sure that stays tightly bandaged as possible.
Sting isn't the word for
That's
it.
a good point. What about you?
Not a fan of flooded valleys. Not a fan of Petruvian legions. Figured I'd find someplace else. There's always someplace else, right?
Well, from the things you're running from, I'm not sure. Oh, I guess the things we're running from, I'm not so sure.
Legions move slow. Regular folk move slow. I don't. Well, unless I'm riding on a cart.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like we're going anywhere fast today, but
Well, not yet. And Boke sort of like looks over at the horse, and I'm going to mark a box of runic power.
okay.
And I have to look up one thing real quick because I gave myself. There we are. I gave myself a stunt that was new. So I need to make sure one additional fate die. So okay. I put my hand sort of on my chest where that rune is, and there's this thrum of power that goes out from me. And if you're looking at me, it almost looks like, imagine if all the molecules in someone's body sped up and they were literally just sort of vibrating in place. Like if you look at Boke, they look relatively normal, but if you look closely, there's just a faint blurring around like the edges of their entire form. And I am going to use this runic power to attempt to create an advantage to give the horse, which my rune sort of is derived from that kind of speed, like a preternatural level of speed and endurance. So we would just begin dashing along the road. What do you think the difficulty for that kind of thing is going to be?
I think in this scenario, it's probably not terribly difficult. I would say probably no more than good.
So 2?
I'd say 2, yeah.
Okay. All right. So it should be noted that I have the stunt Unpredictable Rune. And what that means is when I use my runic power, I roll an additional fate die. On a blank, it functions as normal. On a minus, my rune only operates at human scale, but I receive a fate point. And on a plus, my rune functions at giant scale, and I mark 2 stress boxes. So the interesting thing about this stunt is I have to decide how I want my scale to function in relation to the roll in advance before I know how it's going to, like at what scale it's going to operate.
Okay.
So I'm going to choose to take the +1 on the roll, because right now I'm only one step above human scale. If I roll the minus, it'll operate at human scale and like we'll just sort of speed up a little bit. Like the horse will be able to gallop. Nothing fancy.
Right.
If it functions at giant scale, we're going to get there real quick and we might have a problem on our hands. So here we go. Oh, and I'm using my focus, which is at +1.
Nice.
Okay. So I got a minus on the other die, so I actually don't get any additional bonus. And I rolled a -1 on my roll, which means I have a net of 0.
And let me ask you. I'm gonna give you a choice. We can either not get there fast, which means so we can either not get there fast, which means we have less time to prepare for the oncoming legion, or we can get there fast, which means we get there in a very opportune time for us to arrive with news of an oncoming legion.
And what would the cost be if I chose to succeed at a cost?
The success at a cost would be so I would say the success at a cost is let's say we are, because so what I think the cost would be. Sorry, I lost train of thought for a second. The cost as I see it is you succeed. We get there very quickly, but we get there, going back to our previous episode, moments after the Jarl of Jarls is dead. So before anyone has a chance to actually suss things out, and in the chaos, we are unable to, it is significantly more difficult for us to, rally any forces beyond the two of us to like defend against this oncoming threat.
Fantastic. I'm going to choose to succeed at a cost. So the air between Boke and the horse takes on that same sort of vibrating quality as the power sort of reaches out and touches the horse. And we are now flying along this road. I don't know that the cart is built to handle this. I don't know that the driver is built for this, and your current physical state is definitely not built for this. If I can make a mechanical suggestion, I might have one, and depending on how severe you think your beating has been, have one or two of your boxes of "I can outlast you" marked.
I'll mark. Yeah, I'll definitely mark. Let's go with 2. Why not? Let's play hard.
Okay. So what that means is you only have 4 stress boxes remaining, or you have 2 less, I should say, than your maximum, because you took solid, so you have +2 for physical stress. So your solid boxes are essentially gone right now until you have a chance to actually have medical care. Yeah, I realized that there's nothing on this sheet we're using to actually give us for us to mark conditions. So either grab the PDF character sheet or just keep track of it someplace, I guess.
God, how many physical and mental stress boxes have I got?
It's just 6 stress boxes total, and you have 2 special ones for physical only.
Got it. So 6 +2 for this for
solid. And they're just they're not available to you right now. You cannot recover them.
And then my outlast, I have 5.
2 boxes of that marked.
Out of 5? 5, yeah. Perfect. All right. Yeah, so it is not great. I think that I still have I think that I am initially immediately annoyed, what in the what, and sand is absolutely flying in, and it's just agony. But I'm still kind of looking, and Boke probably seems very calm, and I nonetheless am able to let out a well, all right then. Ow, okay. All right, then.
Oh, yeah, you should hold on to something. And it's been like a couple minutes.
Thank you.
And Boke is smiling at all of this because I think that Ivar's kind of full of shit, right? Like I think that Ivar is not nearly. He's shaken up by his experience, right? He couldn't defeat an entire Petruvian legion. Oh God, oh no, right? Boke's like, well, I wanted to see how you'd react to this, and like you're laughing and shaking your head, which says to me that the old Boke is still in there. You're just injured right now, which you're not used to being this injured. Like, it's the wounds talking. There's nothing like, there's no permanent mental damage going on. As far as Boke's assessment is, for whatever that's worth, the couch psychiatrist that is Boke Pelbairn.
I like that a lot. So we arrive at Jotunheim. Ivar's home. Boke, you are seeing this for the first time. You are seeing that there are giant bones, like all around the town. You see like the mine off in the distance. It is muddy, but you see just people, or at least tents, because I don't think there are people around when we arrive. And
right, because they're all at the dueling grounds.
The cart kind of crashes, and I tumble out, and I fall just into the mud, and I sit up. I'm like, oh, I really wish I didn't get mud in there.
I hop off the cart, and I've got some kind of like trade good with me. Let's just call it like a flask of liquor or something on my hip. I hop down and I toss it to the person who's been driving this cart that has been like out of control for the last 10 minutes, and they're just sort of sitting there shaking, and it just sort of bounces off their chest and falls into their lap. And I say, "Thanks for the ride."
You're welcome. And they're just sitting there shaking.
I lean down and help you up out of the mud. It's not a whole lot of people around. Place usually this empty?
No, usually this time of day, usually they'd be up and about, but
and I think this is when we hear like the gasp and the cry from the dueling grounds when when Ivar stomped on the giant shards and like speared the Jarl right through the middle.
When Leaf did it.
Oh, Leaf. Sorry.
Yeah. So we hear that, and I perk up, and I'm like, the dueling grounds. Well, the surprises today never cease. Thank you for that, by the way. I needed that. Didn't love it, but I needed it.
Sometimes you just have to go faster.
Sometimes. And I walk the two of us over to the dueling grounds just in time to see the Jarl impaled and everyone sort of kneeling around Leaf, who is a farmer, Leaf Bjarnbairn, and I'm just watching this as everyone kneels, and I just let out, "Farmer."
Leaf turns and just looks at the two who have approached the edge of the dueling ground, and he sort of looks around him and he says, "I think the word you're looking for now is Jarl."
All right.
And he bids everyone sort of stand up, and you can see he's got this scythe that is made of that weird crystal from the giant's cave, and everyone is like walking around him with deference, and a few people have gone to take the old Jarl Svensson off the spike and proceed to burn his body.
All right, Farmer Jarl. I mean that term with all due respect, of course.
Of course.
You must forgive a little ego. You know me as well as anyone.
I do. How does Sigrun react to this? Because Sigrun's been watching.
I think Sigrun is still kind of like, I think she still has her hand to her mouth and is watching neither of you but the scythe, because like it just worked. Like this thing that was one of her masterworks has just worked. So now, like there's this moment, she's still in this glow of like, I did it, I accomplished the impossible, but that sort of glow has been cut off by this other thing. So she's like, okay, oh, all right, I'd love to get my hands back on that. So, okay, no, they're gonna talk. You're fine. Good. Go. Please talk. She's thoroughly in her head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the new Jarl says, if I remember correctly, you were with one of the hunting parties. I mean, I was out at the farm when you left, but that was some weeks ago, correct?
1 week ago, about 2 weeks, perhaps. Well, I would have said God, how long has it been? A little over a week, perhaps a week and a half. We got back fast, and I throw a glance over at my new friend,
and Boke just sort of like that, not quite dismissive, but it's that sort of sharp hey hand wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where your hand just moves and then stops. I'm doing it in person, but we don't have the cameras on, so just like, yep, I'm here. It's just acknowledging their own presence in the scene.
So you're Jarl now. That's interesting. Can't say that I'm going to miss Svensson that much, but certainly I have a lot of questions for later.
Why later?
Because you have your first order of business, Jarl. Farmer Jarl.
Oh. And that would be...
And I point again to the smoke, which is a little thicker and a little darker. Petruvia. Their legions are at our doorstep. They'll be here in... Friend, how long do you think that without your... And I just kind of wave my hands around, axe in one hand, like just your... How long do you think that trip would have taken?
Well, we were in a cart and had the benefit of a road. How long did it take you to get to where we picked up the cart?
About a week. I'd say we have a little less than a week. They're going to be on horses, and they're going to have military. They've got logistics on their side, so.
Well, then I figure they're going to be here in 10 days, less, depending.
In 10 days or less, you've got a Petruvian legion at our doorstep, Farmer Jarl.
Interesting. Well, that gives us time to prepare at least. And Leaf begins sort of just turning to... There's an unfamiliar woman standing sort of to the side and back of him, and he turns to her and sort of says something, and she asks a question back, and Leaf answers, and then she nods, and she takes Sigrun, and they head off back to the holdfast proper. And Leaf turns back and says, well, your knowledge will be useful, and I suspect we should begin preparing our defenses.
Well, and here I thought there was going to be a lot more turmoil with this. And I think as I say that, and we all, does Boke come with us as I start to walk with Leaf and Sigrun?
Yeah. Boke just sort of follows behind, like a kind of wry smile on their lips. Boke is thinking that they can basically just up and leave whenever they want to. And right now this is interesting enough to stay. So until things like really go sideways, Boke's just gonna hang out.
Great. So the four of us start walking. You slightly behind. I'm, kind of hop skipping to catch up with Sigrun and Leaf, and and as the four of us start to walk, I kind of look around, and for as confident as Leaf seems that like we have time to prepare, I realize like everyone is still just like standing around as if the Jarl had just been killed and another one took their place. And I'm like, perhaps preparing that army might be a little more complicated than we think.
Yeah. Leaf is, you can tell from their demeanor, treating this like the holdfast is just their farm, right? Where when there's something that needs to be done, you do it. And everyone pitches in, because if you don't, why are you there? And so that's how they're approaching all of this. So do you want to do like details about how this is all going, or do you want to fast forward some time?
Let's fast forward some time and sort of big picture, because I definitely think, especially with the success at a cost earlier, I think we can kind of summarize how things go, and that'll kind of get us into sort of the big moment a little down the road.
Cool. So
actually, maybe what we can do, I actually have a suggestion. In order to summarize it, I think a little faster, maybe we can possibly make a roll or two to add some advantages either in our favor or against it to represent the sort of haphazard preparation process as we kind of ready ourselves for this conflict.
Sure. I have something for that I've been kind of sitting on here. So since we're both sort of playing two characters at this point in time, Leaf, as has been mentioned, is a farmer. The farmer destiny has this special condition track called Generations of Blood. You and your ancestors have farmed the lands around your holdfast for generations. Secrets about the surrounding area have been written into your bones, passed from parent to child since the first seed was planted and animal domesticated. Mark a box of this condition to declare a detail about the land around the holdfast, write an aspect, and place 2 free invocations on it when you mark a box in this way. This is how Leaf is preparing. Is that he is taking this ancestral knowledge and he's like, okay, so you see that tree break over there? There's actually loose scree hidden all behind that. So if we cut most of the way through one tree and then push it over, that entire thing will shower down into the valley. And like basically he's making deadfalls and traps to halt a massive incoming army, because he knows like what cliffside to, pound away at until the river is diverted. So, and in that amount of time, he can mark all 5 boxes and have like 5 very distinct, very farmer centric advantages with a bunch of aspects on, or a bunch of fate points on them, like sort of created. How does that feel to you?
I love that, because I think that'll also kind of, when we kind of fast forward, that'll allow us to like get past a lot. Like we can also kind of hand wave that as like largely successful, setting us up for sort of the one big battle to kind of end it all. And then I think Sigrun, I'm not sure is actually participating in this. Like, I think that at very early on in preparations, like, she is really invested and is hearing all of this out and is contributing to, like, oh, of course, if we just build a quick pulley system, that tree will go straight to. I have to go to a cave and talk to a giant. I have to talk to a giant about a thing. I am so sorry, and she, like, bolts out. So I think that she helps out, like, at first, and then is gone, like, as though, that cartoon, like, smoke trail, or the cartoon outline of smoke, and she's just like, I have to go talk to someone about the future and end of all things, I guess. I'll be back. And she's gone off to talk to the giant and confirm that the deal was a success, and that she will, make good on her promises. So I think she's gone. And I think Ivar, what is Boke up to as all of this is unfolding? I think Ivar is kind of sitting back. Like, Ivar, I think, primarily is, I don't even think, getting medical attention. I think Ivar is just sort of watching almost amusedly at this, at the farmer Jarl running this.
Okay. While
Yes.
I do that, if you will go to slide 7, I've written 3 aspects there. If you want to come up with 2 additional land-based aspects to represent what Leaf has been sort of adding to things, Boke has been sort of just kind of pitching in with things. They still have that wry smile on their face, and they never, like, turn down someone's request for help or anything like that. But there's this air about them that they are not really a part of what's going on. You know what I mean? It's less arrogant than Han Solo having to be convinced by Princess Leia. You know what I mean? To join in the fight, but it's still that sort of same. That's how it comes across to a lot of people. But at the same time, if people are talking about it later, like, a lot of people around the Holdfast saw Boke helping out on something, anything, like any one of the number of things that need to be prepared. And I think I would like if Ivar is ever, like, in a position to watch Boke while they're working, what approach would Ivar use to sort of just observe the situation?
I might call this either, it's not one of my good ones, so it's either guile or intellect. To kind of, I think I'm gonna go with like, I think around, like, watching this, I think it's gotta be, I'm gonna say intellect. I think it's taking the time to note the finer details of it all.
Okay. So go ahead and make that roll, and Boke is actually going to be opposing this with their guile.
Ooh, that's not a good roll. It's a -3, so that's a total of a -2, which is terrible according to the fate ladder.
Yeah, I ended up with a net of 0. So is there anything you want to invoke to gain this information that I am, as a GM player, am obviously holding back?
I think there is an aspect that I want to invoke, and this is the perfect time to introduce an aspect that I think is really important to my ongoing to the story that I feel like is unfolding. Is my group aspect of, are Boke and I 2 sides of the same coin? Okay. And I think as you kind of piece together that I was full of shit earlier, I think I'm watching you and realizing you might also be full of shit, and that you might not be as eager to bounce as you're letting on at first.
Sure. What's your total
My
then on the
total would
roll?
also be a 0.
Okay, so that would be success and a minor cost. Is there anything else you want to invoke to get above that?
I will also invoke Slayer of Great Beasts. I know how to watch, like I can tell. I've studied enough to be able to spot and know when someone or something is worth paying attention to, and is you know, I know to keep an eye on anything that is obviously more powerful than I am. And based on your display earlier, I know to at least keep half of an eye on you.
Sure. All right, so I'm getting rid of those 2 fate points from your docket there. And since you didn't get success with style, here's the information that you glean from this. Boke is helping with anything that people ask them to help with. They are also very keenly observing all of the preparations that are going in to all of this. It's not someone who's sort of just mindlessly stacking stones in front of them. There is an air that you gather of someone who is actively taking in information while this is happening. To what end, you're not sure. But Boke is definitely like absorbing the situation as well as doing the work.
Very good. I like that a lot. Yeah, and I think I'm going to ask for a what's the word? Self compel. Yeah.
Compel?
A self compel of hubris is my downfall, or perhaps even fight until I fall, to basically say, I'm not getting medical attention, right? Like, I'm like, it is because I am simply like, well, I'm hurt, but there's a fight to be had and I don't have time to go get taken care of. So like the fact that I have not cleared my my track of I can outlast you, I think is a compel in and of itself, right? Like the idea that I am going into this fight not at 100%, specifically because I am sort of so kind of amused by this all unfolding, and I'm just like, well, this is a fight. Like I have not turned off I'm in fight mode, and it's going to hinder me in the actual climax that is about to happen.
Oh yeah, that's a bad idea. So, okay, cool. So we have Leaf's preparations as Jarl. So there is a massive deadfall. There's an overly flooded valley that is not supposed to be flooded, even by any projections from this rainfall. There is a firewall. It's literally like a line of hay bales that have like wet straw on top, but they're dry on the inside and treated with oil so they can just go up.
Oh, and yeah, there are trenches and burrows, which are, they have dug, they know the right places to dig. They know the right places to navigate. Like they know both to sort of protect each other and also to kind of force the Petruvian forces into certain places. And then they're also kind of, I think this is the one thing that Sigrun was able to contribute to. There are not quite catapults, not quite like rock, like pea shooters, a little bit larger than a traditional slingshot and a little bit smaller than a catapult. But there are, things that will fire or that will send a rock hurtling through the air. If we need them to sort of just like force people back, or at least force people towards the firewall, towards the trenches, towards the burrows, to kind of keep them to sort of at least sort of give the illusion that we have artillery to sort of move them where we need them to be moved. So, how do we want to play out sort of the big picture battle so we can kind of get into fighting one very large, nasty opponent?
Okay, so because this is a co-GMing situation, I'm going to pull back the curtain on something that you as a player, your character would not know until the last moment. Boak has been paid off by the Petruvians. All of that observation that they're doing, right before this battle comes, they are going to do a couple of things. They're going to activate their rune and basically try and neutralize as many of these advantages as they possibly can. And then as the Petruvian army advances and they sort of begin rolling over these things that should have slowed them down, Boak is going to approach Ivar and say, hey, this looks hopeless. We can just leave. And because mechanically a big battle of Holdfast v Petruvia is a lot, I think that a fight directly between Ivar and Boak would be much more interesting.
I love that. That's so good. So, yeah, so what that looks like is, moments before the battle, right? Everything slows down. We kind of go a little bit into bullet time. And I think maybe the battle unfolds and we just get kind of like snapshots of you sabotaging things. And so the firewall doesn't work quite right. The burrows kind of flood a little bit. Like that water kind of is flood, it goes into the burrows and we're kind of forced out of there. And we're back, right? Our back is against the wall. The Petruvians are upon sort of the outer limits of Jotunheim, and they are upon us. And yeah, we where does that confrontation unfold?
So real quick, I'm just looking at my stunts because it's going to be important here. This is good. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I've had time to recover that initial box of runic power that I spent. So I'm going to end up marking 2 boxes. And at one point in time, this is just to sort of justify the sabotage actually going off without a roll. So I'm using runic boost, which means that for an exchange, I get to function at epic scale, which is a step above giant. So I spend a fate point to do that. And that's how I can get to all of these so quickly and disable them so fast. And then I also have better to burn out. So I get a +2 to overcome rolls when I use my runic approach. So I've just been channeling all of this power into the entire thing. So I'll answer your question with a question. Where would Ivar be standing to watch this oncoming force?
I think probably not far from the front line, or from where like the army is going to arrive, like where we've sort of directed them to arrive. So I think I'm probably out on like a small boulder outcropping, like on one knee, just watching. And like I've kind of mapped it out in my head. This is very much me in the hunt. Like we see this unfolding, we see me like hunting these things before. I take the spot, I map it out, and I play out all the visuals in my head, right? I play it out, and I'm like, okay, so the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to come up this way, and then the water's going to catch them. And I see the first soldiers come up, and the water goes down into one of the burrows, and I'm like, no, that's not. And like piece by piece, I watch our defenses crumble. I watch the slingshots. I look over just in time to see them pull back one of the slingshots, and it breaks. And we zoom in a little bit, and I see those tethers like give, and I'm like, that's not okay. No. And I watched like our defenses start to crumble as they advance.
And as the last thing I think to sort of give away is the firewall, right? That was like the last sort of major line of defense. And there's a few flickering weak flames here and there, but not this massive wall that should block a legion. And as they begin just sort of walking past it, you hear Boak behind you. So that didn't turn out the way it was supposed to for you, did it?
No. Well,
if you turn and look at them, they're sort of fiddling with something in their left hand, and you can see that it's a silver coin, right? It's a Petruvian dinar.
You do not cease to surprise me.
I'm going to give you a chance to surprise me. We can just get out of here. My job's done. This place is done. We could just leave. There's nothing personal. I didn't know you before the ride over.
No. No, you certainly didn't. Because if you did, you'd have slit my throat back there on the cart when you had the chance. Because, you see, if you had heard stories about me, you'd have known that it would have taken an entire Petruvian legion to make me stand down from a fight, and that's only after, well, I've already been beaten 3 or 4 times. And I stand up begrudgingly, right, like I'm shaking out my knee, and as I'm saying this, and I'm just, you see, you don't slay a dragon by charging it head on. You don't slay it by out-tricking it. You slay it by, well, getting the piss beaten out of you and getting back up. It's about the only way to win. So,
Nah, there's one more way.
yeah.
Be faster than everyone around you. And Boke strikes.
And I think as you go to do that, I'm actually going to not that it's going to matter, but I want to invoke it anyway because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I want to invoke as you say there's one way, I'm going to invoke you have to get past me first. You are not leaving this space and engaging anyone else. Like I am saying this is not anyone else's fight.
I like
And I
that.
think it actually also applies. I think it also applies to anyone trying to fight you. It is you're either going to kill me if anyone wants to kill Boke other than me, they have to kill me first. And if you want to try and leave or attack anyone else, you have to kill me first. Like this is between the two of us.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Also, as a note mechanically, to do that epic scale thing, I also had to mark my rune burned, which is going to be important here. So let me just note that down. And as I said, Boke strikes, and they have, because of course they have a knife, and they lunge at you faster than you can almost see. This is a new scene, so I'm marking my last available box of runic power. So for the rest of the scene, I can function at heroic scale. So they dart at you with this knife. Haste, obviously, to try and inflict stress. With what approach are you defending?
I'm going to defend with force. I'm going to defend with just kind of like, bearing my chest, like bearing the sort of cracked and broken dragon scale shield, and just like take it and sort of, I think as arrogant as he is, Ivar's not lying when he says that the way to survive a fight like this is to kind of just take the blow and get back up. So I think it's gonna be force for me of you're gonna hit me and I'm gonna get back up, which might even be focus, but they're the same amount. So
sure, I'm gonna roll my unpredictable die first, so I know what scale I'm operating at. That's a blank, so it functions as normal. And now we have my attack. Oh, cripe! That is a bad roll. So that is a net of +1,
Okay.
with an additional 1 because of the difference in scale.
Okay.
So 2 shifts coming at you.
All right. I've got also 2 shifts. I rolled a flat wash, and I am going to invoke. I'm going to invoke that I'm going to invoke Slayer of Great Beasts as I was just saying, and say like, no, this is what I do, and you come at me and you lay me out, and I just kind of like, you lay me out, you slash into the shirt, and I just kind of like stand up, and I say, okay.
I'm going to invoke You Don't Know Me to
Okay.
re-roll because I rolled badly.
That puts me at a total of 4.
Okay. So you're at a total of 4. I now have I've got a 3. And I'm gonna let that stand as you narrated.
Yeah. So you slash into me, and I stumble back, and for a moment, like, there's that moment of like, did I just do it? Was it that easy? And I just kind of climb up. That was good. That was pretty good. That was admittedly, you're quick. I'll give you that.
Huh.
All right then. Try again, or is it my turn?
Boke is going to try again. Boke is not used to being frustrated like this, and the two of us are just sort of squaring off and like inching around this sort of fighting ring, right, that has been sort of established. So the rune this time only functions at human scale, but I gain a fate point. So I'll note that down, and we'll roll my haste again. That's better. That's 5.
I'm actually going to be rolling flair on this, because I think that part of it is me putting up the show of like, you know, I can tell you're frustrated, and I'm half enjoying it and half knowing that you're out of your element a little bit. Good. That is also a 5.
Crap. I am going to invoke my Woodbound Rune of Ahwaz and my Trouble of There's No One I Can Count On But Myself.
Okay.
To take that to 4 shifts coming at you.
Okay. Now, remind me of stress boxes in Iron Edda. Are they all +1, or do they have numbers associated?
No, they're all just 1, just like Fate Accelerated.
Got it.
So if you get hit with 4 shifts, you're marking 4 boxes.
Then I am going to invoke Dragon Scale Shirt. And take 2 boxes. No, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take the 4 boxes.
Okay, that's a very shield bearer thing to do.
I think it is every bit sticking true to my word, and just you know, I crumble and I tumble down the hill a little bit, and like, it's gross looking. Like, it looks like I am crushed until, you know, pounding in the dirt and just oh, wow, oh, goodness.
And I let you get out is goodness, and then I jump down the hill and go again. So again, GM wise, because you would know this if you were running, Boke is planning on taking this up to the point that it becomes obvious that they can't keep this up against Ivar. There will come a tipping point. It may come after the first time that you would be taken out, and you instead mark I can outlast you. Like when what looks like a killing blow, and you just stand up.
Yep.
So that's where narratively that'll be the turning point of this conflict, I think.
Yep, and I think I'm still rolling flair on this because I am still just like I'm putting on the show, right? Like this is me getting in your head so that you think, like, to get you to that point where you're like, I don't think I can kill this guy.
Yeah. So I rolled a minus on my unpredictable again, so that's another fate point. And oh, good lord, that's 3 minuses on the dice.
That's a +1 on mine, so that's going to be a 4. I've got a 4 defense coming at you.
Yeah. I am going to invoke Swift a Foot Long of Life, and I'm going to re-roll because -3 is bad. That's only -1. That's still only a 2. So this time I think my blade just glances completely off the shirt. Like I just know that I didn't get any purchase on that one. And you actually have a boost from that because you succeeded so well. So let's just call it Relentless or something like that. And I'm gonna take this one more time because you're obviously not attacking back yet.
No. I'm letting you. And that's almost my offense, right? It's just kind of showing you like that I'm not bluffing when I tell you I can get up from a dragon, from like a tail swipe from a dragon, or from a giant's punch to the jaw.
Let's see.
That's probably a fun bit of backstory. I probably learned this from tussling with giants.
Okay. So I'm actually going to try something real quick because Boke is relatively certain they've only got one way that they might be able to end this. So when Rune Burned is marked, which I did during the sabotage, I have to write an aspect that reflects sort of how the rune has affected me. And I think that the aspect is something like mind moving as fast as body, where like I can't slow down my thoughts. And the way to recover that condition is just to roll and overcome versus a difficulty of 6. And I think I want to take a moment in this exchange in this conflict we have and try and think through this and get my thoughts to slow down so I can consider what I'm doing more effectively. That's the narrative framing of that. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works great.
Okay, so I'm going to roll my intellect because it's all mental. And I have to beat a 6, which is a lot because I'm only rolling at +2. So let's see what we start with here. Okay, so I only got the 2 total. And what would be an appropriate cost for this if I were to succeed at a major cost?
An appropriate cost, I might say, you will say just narratively that you keep attacking, and like that, like you fall, that like you're thinking so fast that you're not thinking about the fact that like I keep getting up, and that frustration is just seeping in deeper and deeper. So what I might say is you are at like, and we can decide what that disadvantage, like how we want to mechanically play that disadvantage out, but you are at a real disadvantage because I've let you kind of get into the spot where I can just get that one massive swing in of the bone axe to like be like, all right, my turn now. Like you're past the point of exasperation where you're flailing to the point where I get that one great shot in.
Okay, so let's reflect that by marking my in peril condition. Okay. And exasperated will be the aspect that goes along with that. But because this wasn't marked because of an exchange, you won't get a fate point on it. But I'm now exasperated. I don't have that resource available to me. Rune Burned is available now. and I am about to take my last ditch effort, but like you said, I am set up for a strike.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I think that like I kind of let you sort of get your kind of let you kind of like you flail out, and I step back and I just like hold the axe and I just raise it and I go, all right, my turn. And I'm going to use my focus aspect on this, and I'm preemptively, whether I use them to re-roll or a +2, I'm not sure yet, but I am just going to put all of my fate points into this one. This is everything. Let's see how we do. That's a -1. That's still a 6, 7, 8. So that'll be a 7. I think I'm going to go with using them all as +2 and take the 7 as opposed to trying to roll the dice and get something higher.
Okay. I rolled a total of 1, which means that's 6 shifts coming at me. So I am just going to take the hit and mark my doomed condition. So the aspect I'm going to write in there is how brutal is this blow? Like, I marked doomed. Like, physically, I took this hit. How bad is it?
It's pretty bad. I think it is.
Like limb loss bad?
I think it's limb loss bad.
Okay.
I think it is specifically like it is absolutely. I think half of one of your legs is gone. Like right at the knee.
Okay. Well, I think that would narratively hamper anything that this character wants to do in the future.
Okay. Let's go.
Could it be a little more poetic and have the left hand that still had the Petruvian dinar
that's perfect.
in it?
I love that. Okay. Yeah, the hand just comes off, and I kind of just start twirling the axe in my hand, and I'm like, "You can pick up the silver if you want. I don't mind if you keep the silver. The silver's yours."
You say that, and Boke just the first real emotion that he's shown or that they've shown, like, flashes across their face, and it's just rage. So I am spending a fate point, and I am marking rune burn. And let's see. Yep. So I'm using Runic Boost. I can spend a fate point, mark root burned to function at epic scale for an exchange. So my rune is still unpredictable. So what that means is if I roll the minus, it'll take it down to giant. If I roll the plus, it takes it up to godlike, which is amazing. And I rolled it even, so I'm still functioning at epic scale. So this is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 steps above human scale, which is what you're fighting at. I'm going to use haste, so that is a total of +6 on this roll, and that's what I'm going with. And I have a total of 5.
I got +1, so that on top of my, we'll call this force, because I don't think that I don't think I'm in a position to continue the mind games. So we'll call this force of just like taking the hit, which will put me at 3, which will fill up my stress boxes, which means that I will mark one of my I can outlast you. So one of my conditions permanently goes, or one of my stress boxes permanently goes away. You take me down, or describe to me what it looks like, what Boke experiences.
Yeah. So the air around Boke shimmers and shakes even more, and almost faster than you can see, Boke is right next to you, and their knife is in your chest. And like they are heaving, and they lower you down to the ground. And as they pull the knife out, what do you do?
I am perfectly still for a moment, just long enough for you to think that it's over. And then it's just like I spit blood up, and I just like spit blood up, and I like half convulse, and I sit up. Here I thought this. Here I thought the sand was the worst thing going in my chest today. Oh. And I'm like wobbling as I like clamber to my feet, and I'm like shaking it out, and like I wipe the blood with my hand, and I just oh. You ever been stabbed? It sucks.
Boke is just standing there sort of dumbfounded.
And I drop it, right? Like this is the moment when I drop it. And I just say, do you want to know the first time I thought I was going to die on a battlefield? And I look down at the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
You ever been engulfed in flame? You think you think stabbing sucks, and oh, it really, really does. You think stabbing sucks. Fire everywhere. You can't breathe. It's fire and smoke and... But I got up. Because frankly, and I look around, I look at the bones, the people that trained me would not have been happy had I laid down at that moment. The people that I tussled with, that I wrestled with, would not have been happy had I not gotten up. So I got up. Got out of there, lucky enough. Do you want to guess a number? Do you want to just pick a number out of a hat? Honestly, I couldn't even tell you if you're right, because I've started to lose count. So, we could keep going. We could certainly continue to do this. Or I could go take care of some of those Petruvians, and we just never see each other again, Boke. My friend? Maybe we just don't cross paths anymore, and if we do, maybe I take your other hand. Maybe I take a lot more from you. You tell me how this goes. And I look at the wound, and I kind of like, I shift the bandages that are already there to sort of haphazardly cover the wound. Because I got all day.
I think that Boke wipes the blade of their knife off on the ground, sheathes it, reaches up to their neck where there's that leather thong that makes their rune sort of look like a necklace, and they pull it off and sort of look down at the piece of leather in their right hand and look at the stump where their left hand was, and sort of hold the piece of leather out to you and hold out their ruined arm. Like, I can't tie this myself.
And I go and I tie it. I walk up and I'm like, it would be a lot easier if you were maybe a little bit lower. Like if you were on one knee, it would make it a lot easier for me. You understand.
At that, Boke just turns around and walks away. And as you sort of watch them go, they pass by like a brazier where people have like flaming arrows and stuff set up, and you just watch them cauterize the stump in the fire, and they scream. Like, it's not, they're not that stoic. This is not that badass moment, right? Like, they're effectively conceding this conflict is what's happening, and they're just leaving on their own terms. But they do that, and they stand there holding their left arm and just sort of breathing for a lot of moments. And then you hear a Petruvian horn sound as the battle sort of begins, like in earnest, down below. And you glance down the hill to see the oncoming Petruvian forces. And when you glance back, Boke is just gone.
And I think that we cut, right? Like I think that we zoom in and we cut to not the battle, not where Leaf is, though I am curious as to certainly Leaf is sort of dealing with this, gathering forces, and we see this sort of battle. We see Leaf leading these people into battle. We cut to a cave. And we cut to the sound of like drilling and scraping and chiseling as Ivar, and we see Ivar standing behind like Sigrun, who's deep at work and has already started to and as she's working, chunks of like stone and are starting to jut out of her skin as the pact is starting to work, and she's like, but she is completely in her element, right? She is just blissful as slowly, and it will be a process that will take years, but like she's already started to change into a giant. And she's just chiseling away. She's like, okay, if I put a mirror here, it'll reflect. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be so nice. And she does not see Ivar walk past, and goes to the giant at the bottom of this cave and says, "Old friend, I've come back. I've come home. We need help." And I think that might be the closing note. No closing note here.
I think it definitely is. And I will say this: if we do a third session of this, I'm rolling a bone bonded, and I know who they're bound to.
Good. That was good. I definitely do want to do it. Now we got to do a third part. Good. Yeah. I gotta see how this plays out. That's so fun. I like this so much. Thank you so much, Tracy. This was a blast.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to do this. I like the idea of looking at the same situation from different perspectives and doing like this montage of shorts, essentially, to tell one whole story.
I love it. It's so cool. Well, thank you for doing the show. Real quick, before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
You can find me on Twitter and on my website, which is at The Other Tracy, or theothertracy.com. That's Tracy, no E. You can find my podcast, which is The Other Cast. You can see that on iTunes. If you want just another blank page and not the actual play that we also do, which we are currently playing a heavily modified version of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and the campaign is called Waterdeep for a Few Dragons More.
Love it.
Thank you. You can find all of it together in the main Othercast feed, or you can just look for another blank page on iTunes. It has its own separate feed. I'm going to break out the Dragon Heist game into its own sometime. I just have to take the time to do it. Look for the Small Games Anthology, Paper Arcade, Volume 1. All the small games, all 4 of them focus on card-based mechanics. That should be kickstarting in July. And if you are going to be at Origins, which I believe at the time of posting of this, it'll be real close. So you can come see me here in Columbus and play some games or talk Iron Edda or podcasting or whatever you'd like. And then lastly, I also sell all my stuff on DriveThruRPG under Exploding Rogue, or on my itch.io page at The Other Tracy, or itch.io/TheOtherTracy.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This is God, it was so cool, and I love it so much. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to Tracy for coming onto the show. That game was outstanding. Loved it. Be sure to check the show notes for links to all of Tracy's work. Like I said on the show many times, I can't recommend it enough. I am a big fan. And also be sure to follow Tracy on Twitter at TheOtherTracy. Then while you're on Twitter, follow us at Party of One Pod. Like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast. Join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving us a nice iTunes review, a social media shout-out, or a word-of-mouth recommendation to a friend. Or consider backing me on Patreon at patreon.com/JeffStormer. The Patreon helps support all sorts of cool things like live shows, including the one this Saturday, July 20th at 5:30 p.m. at Tattooed Moms as part of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival, which I hope you'll make it out to. Check the Facebook event in the show notes, RSVP, and I hope to see you there on Saturday. It's going to be a great show. Speaking of great shows, have you listened to All My Fantasy Children? I love this podcast. All My Fantasy Children is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast powered by listener prompts. Every week, my best friend Eric Gatanos and I take a listener prompt, we spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop every Friday at allmyfantasychildren.com. Party of One is, as always, produced and edited by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Mega Ran, featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates or about coming on to the show as a guest, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And that is it for me. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.